For a long time, you were underestimated. They looked at you as if you were fragile. They talked behind your back, created stories, tried to push you down. But they made a mistake they will never forget. They judged the chosen one as if he were ordinary. They thought they were dealing with just an ordinary person. They did not know they were poking at someone who was born with a mission. The chosen one carries a strength that is not visible at first glance. He takes hits in silence, but learns. He does not react on impulse, but observes, absorbs, and waits. Those who thought they would destroy him were, in fact, being led to his own test. Because who meddles with the chosen one does not go unscathed. Justice may be slow, but it does not fail. Today, you understand. Everything that happened was not in vain. The pain trained you. Rejection healed you inside. Silence sharpened you. And now, unexpectedly, you are standing stronger, more aware, more dangerous to anyone who wants to attack you again. This video is about that. About the 7 deceptions they committed when trying to destroy the chosen one. And about the hidden strength that only someone who has died inside so many times knows how to carry. Prepare yourself. You will recognize yourself. But first, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications. Also share with others. They expected you to blow up, that you respond in kind, that you defend yourself like a desperate person. But you did not yield. You preferred silence. You chose not to react immediately. And just for that, they called you weak. They thought they were beating you because you did not take a stand as they expected. But you knew what you were doing. The chosen one's silence is not cowardice. It is intelligence. It is a conscious pause to observe, to understand the battlefield before acting. While they wore themselves out with impulsive words, gossip, insinuations, and cheap provocations, you saved energy. They wanted you to become unbalanced, but you remained firm. They did not realize how dangerous that was. Your silence was not fear. It was preparation. Pain taught you not to spend energy on what has no value. Maturity taught you to observe before acting. The Spirit taught you to discern between necessary struggle and emotional trap. And in that moment, everything was a trap. They did not want answers. They wanted to destabilize you. But the more you stayed quiet, the more they revealed themselves. The masks began to fall. The false alliances began to show themselves as fragile. The true motives began to surface. And without you needing to say a single word, everything became clear. You let them talk, let them provoke, let them try. But you did not take the bait. You are not someone who acts on impulse. You learned the hard way that the right answer at the wrong time becomes a problem. So you waited. You calculated. You stayed silent until you knew exactly where and how to step. And in that time, the enemies who thought they were dominating you were only exposing their own weaknesses. Pain taught you that victory in war is not achieved by shouting. It is won with strategy, with precision, with patience. And those who lack patience reveal themselves quickly. They revealed themselves. They showed haste, desperation, and anger. You showed self-control. You showed clarity. You showed that you know exactly who you are, even in silence. They confused quietness with defeat. They did not know that the chosen one's silence is the space between the fall and the victory. It is there that everything is decided. They fell into their own trap, thinking they were cornering you, when in fact, you were allowing them to come close enough to expose themselves. Their mistake was thinking you needed to prove something. The chosen one does not need to prove anything to anyone. He knows what he carries. He knows what it is. And he knows that often what scares the enemy the most is not a shout. It is calm. Because the chosen one's calm is filled with power. They only realized this too late. When they expected to see you lost, they saw you firm. When they expected to see confusion, They saw clarity. And when they thought you were retreating, you were only preparing the move that would end it once and for all. This is the strength of someone who does not talk too much, observes and acts at the right moment. At the beginning, it seemed they were winning. There were many, loud voices, mutual support. They shouted with certainty because they were in a herd. But the chosen ones know. It is not the number of people that determines power, but the inner strength of the one who is fighting. You did not need a crowd. You needed conviction. They gathered allies, made alliances around hatred. They invented lies, reinforced stories, and tried to isolate you. All of this seemed like strength, but it was despair. The chosen one understands what it is to be alone. You have been left behind before. You have gone through phases where no one believed in you, and you survived. While they sought security in others, you sought strength inside yourself, and you found it. You discovered that those who have faced life head-on, without an audience or applause, are not shaken by the roar of crowds. You learned to be your own anchor, your own base, your own faith. They thought that their union would scare you, but you have faced bigger storms. You have lived through more painful abandonments. You have faced the dark with not a single hand extended. And when you survive that, there is no loud group that can bring you down. On the contrary, their pressure only tuned you further. The more they gathered to attack you, the more you grew inside. Every word of hatred served as a brick for your fortress. They wanted you to fall. You remained standing. They expected you to crumble. You stood up stronger. Because the chosen one is like that, does not fall easily. They confused union with unity, but they were united only by convenience, by fear, or by envy. That is not strength. That is disguised fragility. And you saw that. You did not respond the same way. You did not try to form your own group. You did not lower yourself. You simply remained firm. And it was enough to dismantle their entire structure. The moment arrived when the group that attacked you began to fall apart. Internal fights, distrust, exposed lies. The castle they seemed to have built against you had no foundation. Meanwhile, you grew in silence. And when they looked again, they realized they had not destroyed you. They had revealed themselves. This is how the chosen one wins. Without raising his voice, without needing to blend in, simply being who he is, sustained by an inner force, and which no false group can imitate. They came in droves. You stood alone. But in the end, it was you who remained standing. They looked at you and thought you wouldn't endure. They judged your tired appearance, your silences, your eyes marked by battles. They believed that that last blow would be enough to paralyze you. But what they did not know is that you had already faced pains that would make many give up. You have died inside and resurrected. You are not someone who does not feel. You feel everything to excess. The difference is that you learn to transform pain into strength. Rejections taught you not to beg for love. Betrayals showed you the value of listening to your intuition. And every loss made you realize that nothing external can define who you are. They thought that by hurting you, they would win. But each wound was one more tattoo of your survival. Each tear, a rung for your reconstruction. What they called weakness was the process of someone who chose to live, even with a heart ripped inside. You did not run from the pain. You talked to it. And the pain, as cruel as it has been, gave you something no one can take away: maturity, clarity, purpose. While they acted on impulse, you learned about resilience. While they mocked your wounds, you used them as a reminder that you are still here, still standing, still breathing, still advancing. Your pain was not a punishment. It was your training ground. Every night that seemed impossible to get through. Every day when no one understood you. Every moment of solitude. All of this formed in you a strength that does not shout, but sustains. A courage that does not need to appear, because it has already become part of who you are. They did not understand that the Chosen One is not immune to pain. He is intimate with it. He has sat with anguish. He has danced with loneliness. He has faced the void and returned from there stronger. What they thought was your end was, in fact, the beginning of a new version of you. Firmer, more conscious, more alive. They bet on your downfall. They expected you to crumble. But you rebuilt yourself. You rebuilt with what was left. And today, you carry scars that do not hide weakness, but tell your story of survival. The pains they caused you prepared you. They just did not know they were making you more lethal. You are the kind of person who learned to walk with a broken heart and still love, who has stood up from the floor so many times that the fall stopped scaring. You no longer fear pain, because you know that if it comes, you will know what to do. They were badly wrong, because they underestimated someone who was trained by fire. They thought they knew everything, that they were manipulating, deceiving, controlling. They believed that spreading lies, forging alliances, and working behind the scenes would bring you down. But what they did not know is that you are not guided only by what you see. You feel. You perceive. You see beyond the surface. This is the advantage of the Chosen Ones. While they schemed in the physical plane, you had already discerned in the spirit. While they smiled at you with hidden intentions, your heart already warned you. Do not trust. And even without proof, you knew. Time always confirms what the spirit had already revealed. And that is exactly what happened. They expected your immediate reaction. They wanted you to strike back, to rush, to explain yourself. But you do not move on impulse. You learn to recognize when the attack is just bait. You stayed silent, not out of fear, but because you had already understood everything. You preferred to withdraw than to level up. You chose to raise your frequency rather than become contaminated. The war they waged was on the earthly plane. Gossip, insinuations, provocations. But you do not play on that field. You pray, you observe, you feel. Your reaction happens on another level, the spiritual. And there, where their eyes cannot reach, you were already winning. They thought they were winning, but they were only revealing themselves. The Chosen One has an intelligence that is not measured by difficult words. It is soul wisdom. It is atmosphere discernment. It is that certainty that comes from above and guides you even when you cannot explain how. And for that reason, nothing they tried worked. Because you already knew what was behind it. You do not need to go to war to prove strength. Your strength is in knowing where to spend energy, in choosing your battles wisely. They confused your calm with passivity. But your calm was connection. It was clarity. It was your way of saying, I have understood everything, and that is why I will not react as you expect. They were blind, but you were seeing everything. The movement, the intention, the pattern. Every hidden attitude was noticed, and every one of your silences was strategic. They never understood this. Because only those with spiritual intelligence can fight without touching, win without shouting, and protect without attacking. You not only survived, you won spiritually. And this is the most powerful victory that exists. This is one of the most recurring deceptions. They look at the Chosen One and see light, generosity, kindness, and think, this one is easy to manipulate. They come with sweet words, subtle requests, hidden intentions. They reap all they can, your energy, your support, your time, and then vanish as if nothing happened. But they are mistaken. The Chosen One is not foolish. He feels before understanding. He notices when he is being tested, even without clear evidence. And even if, in that moment, he says nothing, he notes. The chosen one's silence is never empty. It is observation. It is prudence. It is also mercy, because he knows it has weight. But everything has a limit. Heaven also notes. Nothing escapes the eyes of the spiritual. Each malicious intention, each selfish use, every lie disguised as affection. Those who think they are gaining an advantage are, in fact, digging their own grave. Because the chosen one is not just a person. He carries a mission. He is a crossroads between the natural and the divine. Who uses a chosen one is not merely playing with a kind person. They are messing with a portal of purpose. And the return is inevitable. What seemed like a quick advantage becomes a deep consequence. Those who used your trust, who betrayed your surrender, who mocked your goodwill, end up exposed. Not by your vengeance, but by justice. They thought they would go unpunished. They believed you would continue life as if nothing happened. But what they did not know is that every action against someone on a mission has a return. Life returns. The spiritual adjusts. And sooner or later they understand. Messing with the chosen one is messing with something that cannot be controlled. You do not seek revenge. You do not lower your energy to get even. You give, release, move on. But life does not let it pass. Those same people who used you start to reap distrust, distance, doors closing, without even understanding why. But you know, heaven saw, and spiritual justice is always precise. They thought they could win by draining you, but in the end, what they achieved was to show who they really are. And now, where you grow in peace, they sink under the weight of their own choice. They prepared themselves for an ordinary war. They expected screams, insults, inflamed justifications. They imagined that by provoking you, you would explode, that you would lose your temper, that you would make a scene. But the chosen one does not respond in the same tone. He does not retaliate in kind. He does not enter a war to feed the ego. He enters to end cycles. And that's where everything changes. While they came with provocation, you returned it with silence. While they expected scandal, you delivered absence. And that destabilized them, because they were prepared for chaos, but not for precision. They were armed for the noise, but did not know how to deal with strategy. The chosen one does not fight with anger. He fights with vision. They wanted you to react like everyone else, to burn, to lose control, to say something they could use against you. But you learned, not every attack deserves a response. Not every clash is worth your energy. Because some wars are not fought with force, they are won with focus. While they wanted an audience, you wanted peace. While they sought to fuel drama, you sought liberation. You do not fight to win a debate. You fight not to carry unnecessary weight. And that to them was frustrating, because what they most wanted was to see you lose it. But you remained whole. It is that the chosen one understands something that others have not yet understood. Spiritual maturity is knowing when to be silent. It is recognizing that reacting the same as everyone else only makes you like them. And you are not. You were separated, you were trained, and learned that the best blow is the one that ends it all, with dignity. They were not prepared for someone like you, someone who does not need confrontation to prove reason, someone who prefers to cut the cycle than to continue the game, someone who knows the power of a firm, silent, irreversible decision. That is what disarms them. Because while they spin in cycles of emotional war, you step away, heal, and move on in peace. Your strength is not in your reaction. It is in the closing. They thought you would react like others. But you are not like others. You are the end of repetition. You are the final point. In the beginning, Everything seemed against you. The sideways looks, the hidden words, the disguised attacks. They were sure you were the target. They planned, manipulated, tested your limits. But what they did not realize is that, in that scenario, you were not the main character of the fall. You were the test, the opportunity, the dividing line. God did not allow that because you were weak. On the contrary, He allowed it because you were already ready. You were the mirror, and they, by attacking you, were revealing who they really were. Each choice they made, each lie told, each mask worn, all of that was being recorded, because the test was not yours, it was theirs. The attack they thought was about you, in fact, was about them. It was heaven asking, "How do you treat who I have chosen?" Their answer was clear, and now where you rise they sink, because the way we treat the chosen ones reveals what is in our spirit. And they revealed everything. You passed through all of this not because you were weak, but because you were strong enough to endure and survive. Everything they did to you, and the attacks, the forced silences, the betrayals, the lies, were not punishments. They were confirmations. Life does not test just anyone with such deep pains. It tests those who carry something great. They looked at you and thought it was easy. They confused your kindness with weakness. They confused your silence with fear. They thought that by not retaliating, you had given up. But the chosen one does not give up. He observes. He waits. And at the right time, he rises, not to retaliate, but to win. And that changes everything. You were not placed in this situation to break. You were placed to prove, once again, that light always wins. That no matter how much darkness they try to cast on someone who carries a mission, a purpose, truth, the light inside the chosen one is indestructible. It can fade for a time. It can waver, but it never dies. Each attack they made on you was, in fact, a mirror to themselves. They were being observed, tested, evaluated, and they failed. Because they did not understand that messing with someone on a mission is messing with the heavens themselves. They thought they were dealing with flesh and bone, but they were touching a spiritual seed that carries something eternal. You were the measure, the sieve, the chance for them to show who they were, but they chose the path of greed, of pride and manipulation. They wanted to see you broken. They wanted to silence you. But all they achieved was to reveal their own emptiness. Because when someone tries to destroy the chosen one, the only thing that destroys is themselves. You, with all the pain you faced, with all the loneliness you carried, with all the tears that no one saw, you became a fortress. You became a mirror. You became living evidence that it is possible to pass through hell and come out on the other side even more whole. That is what it is to be chosen. It is not about never suffering. It is about never stopping. And now that everything has been revealed, what remains is light. Light on the truth. Light on who you are. Light on the path you will still follow. They tried to stop you, but they did not know that every attempt at a fall was in fact momentum to launch you farther. They thought they were closing doors. They were, in fact, pushing you toward the right portal. You do not need to prove anything more. You do not need to explain yourself. You do not need to justify your pain, your journey, or your decisions. Those who understood, understood. Those who saw, saw. And those who did not understand will learn when the fruits of your walk begin to appear. Because the harvest of the chosen one is inevitable, and no one can stop it. What seemed like defeat was in fact a seed. What seemed like silence was strategy. What seemed like weakness was dormant power. Now that power is waking. It is manifesting as authority, clarity, vision. They did not know who they were dealing with. But now, everyone knows. And the most beautiful part of all this? You still have love in your heart. You still have compassion, even after everything. You still believe in good, even having seen the worst. This is strength of truth. This is being unshakable. They tried to erase that in you. But what they did was ignite it even more. The mission was never simple. But it was never in vain either. And the proof is that you are here, more conscious than ever, sharper, lighter, deeper. And if someone asks how you survived all of this, the answer is simple. You are not just anyone. You are a chosen one. You were not spared from pain, but you were sustained by a greater purpose. You were not protected from betrayal, but you were shielded by your essence. You were not exempt from war, but you were trained to win it in the invisible. That is what makes you so different. That is what makes you so dangerous to those who underestimated you. And now, if you feel this message was for you, comment here. Write a word, a phrase, a truth that the world needs to hear. This conversation does not end with this video. It continues with your voice. Because where there is a healed chosen one, there is light that can heal others. And your voice is part of that healing. We are together in this journey, in silence when necessary, in war when required, but always, always on a mission.